Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Hey there, it's Samantha. I wanted to talk to you about your health. Did you know that more women in their 40s are having babies than teenagers in the US? That's a first. There are several reasons for this, but it's been made possible in part because of advancements in egg freezing and IVF. In this week's Now You Know, I'd like to take you on a health journey of some of our favourite stories, beginning with Zayna Hamarneh, who has decided to focus on her career until she finds the person she wants to have a family with. Zayna Hamarneh is one busy woman. As the co-founder and CEO of Mode Marketing and PR, a creative agency in Jordan, when she was 35 and single, she decided to freeze her eggs. So, Zayna, thank you very much for joining us on Now You Know. I can't wait for us to trade egg freezing stories.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for reaching out. It's super nice to connect with people from different countries, different cultures, and different parts of the world going through the same thing. Makes you feel that you're not alone.
That's true. I'm glad that we found each other, and you're right, we're not on our own in this experience. So when I did come across you and your story, I obviously instantly connected because we both had that sense of relief after our procedures. But I kind of want to go back with you and just ask what made you want to freeze your eggs.
So I decided to freeze my eggs 3 years ago when I was 35. Sadly, we're aging. That's the truth we should all face. Some age better than others. But even if we don't feel getting older, our cells and biologically we age, and that's a medical thing that no one can deny. I wasn't in a serious relationship back then, and I never wanted to rush into marriage to be able to become a mom and have kids. So this was one of the main reasons I did that. I wanted to actually not only freeze my eggs, but freeze time.
Yeah. Was your career a part of the reason why you wanted to freeze your eggs as well?
I don't think it's my career. It's when I was ready. If the person shows up in your life, you'll make it happen. But I never had this person in my life before. So I was never thinking about it. That's why I was very focused on my work only.
Yeah. How did you know about the procedure as well? I mean, were you always aware of it, or did you have a really good gyno? Because that was the case for me. I didn't know. I knew one woman, but I didn't know about it until I saw my gyno and she told me about it. So who told you about it?
So I've been looking into that since I was 30, but it was available in Jordan. However, many doctors would avoid doing that because I'm unmarried. Some would tell me it would range in really high fees, which is not the case. Jordan, by the way, has one of the cheapest procedure fees here.
Really?
With excellent medical services and specialists. So I've been looking around. And one day I just called my gyno, who's my actual elementary and high school friend. And I'm like, I want to do it. Let's do it. And she was guiding me through it. And she's like, of course you can do it in Jordan. It's legal. You just need the right doctors and all that. So I've been researching about it. I've been seeing doctors. And it was till 2021 when actually I found the right doctors to proceed with this procedure for me.
So what are the laws surrounding egg freezing in Jordan? I mean, are the rules different if you are married or unmarried?
Okay. So anyone can freeze their eggs. However, you can only do the process of the next process of IVF, where they get the sperm with the egg in the lab and then inject them into your body. You can only do this if you're married.
Aha.
You cannot do the whole process out of wedlock. Yeah.
So if egg freezing is legal in Jordan, then why did some of the doctors reject you?
So there's a lot of taboos and a lot of things that are constrained by the culture. So basically, women out of marriage are not preferred to do egg freezing. So because of the procedure of it, some people do it vaginally and some people do it through incisions through the stomach. The best way to do it is
vaginally
through the vagina. But so many people avoid doing those things for women who are out of wedlock. Because, virginity in this part of the world is one of the most important things when it comes to a woman.
I don't know who you told first in your circle or in your family, but what was the reaction?
My Instagram.
Oh, you told Instagram before you told anybody else?
Yeah, a few of my friends knew that I wanted to do that, but they didn't know that I'm doing that. And it was one friend who I sent him the post and I'm like, listen, I'm super angry. Just read it, proofread it. Anything that needs to be edited, just tweak it for me. I'm posting this on Instagram.
Wow.
So
you didn't talk to anybody. You just thought, I'm just going to put it all out there. I'm just going to go all in. Put my story out there and just let people know that I'm doing it. So you did this before you did the procedure?
Yeah.
Wow. So that means there was no turning back then. You had to go through with it, right?
Well, I said I wanted to do it. And then actually after posting that, a doctor reached out to me and he was really experienced in that because he was working in a cancer hospital outside Jordan and was doing these procedures on daily basis for cancer patients. So he gave me more confidence in his experience that I'm going with him. My gyno was with me all the time as well. So Instagram knew first.
So what was the reaction?
Unbelievable. It was extremely positive. I have a circle of niche followers, and I posted that my post in English, and people with similar backgrounds, similar educational background, and women my age were extremely supportive, and men as well, for taking this step forward, because at the end of the day, I was not doing it only for myself. I'm doing it for me and my future partner. So I got really amazing feedback, amazing feedback from doctors a month and a half after actually posting about the procedure and what I did and actually doing it. I had one person come up to me. I was at a dinner out with my friends, and she came to me. She was like, I'm a gynecologist. I just want to thank you for actually pushing this. Our industry needs it. She's like, I have nonstop appointments because of you for women asking about this. The negative reactions I got were not on my posts, were on the Arabic interviews I've done on national TV stations because they had a wider audience than mine.
Why is that? Why isn't it spoken about a lot more in the Arab world though?
Because anything that has to do with women's sex and women's sexual health is a taboo. You cannot talk about having your period publicly. But this is all around the world. But in the Arab world, there's this word called da'ib, which is frowned upon, some sort of. That's the closest definition for this word. So you're not allowed to talk about sexual health when it comes to women. In general, in many communities around the world, this is an issue. And when you talk about it publicly, it showcases that you're breaking out this intimate barrier between people and you. And you're not supposed to talk about this.
When I was doing my research, I couldn't find another Black woman that went through the same thing. And it just seems like a procedure that is only saved for the Western world, or if you're a Western white woman, then this is the access you have. Lo and behold, it's accessible to the majority of us, but it just wasn't documented, or I couldn't find a podcast or a YouTube channel that I could relate to. So although I found a few stories, there weren't women that looked like me, so we could relate. And I just thought, why isn't this, I don't know, being spoken about? Again, why is there, I don't know if it was a taboo, but I just don't know if it was done or if we knew that it was accessible to women like us. If you had to pass on any advice to any woman who wants to freeze her eggs, what would you tell them?
Know your body. And please visit your gynecologist frequently. If I was able to do it at the age of 26, I would have done it at the age of 26. Don't wait till you're 35 because, again, biologically we get older. So freeze them as soon as you can if you want to or if you have the need for that. And please keep checking with your gynecologists. In our part of the world, women only visit the gynecologist when they get married. So many people don't know that they don't have any sort of egg left because they've never checked before. Just keep knowing your body, keep your regular checkups going. And it's not a taboo to talk about it. It's not a taboo to care about it as well. And it's your body at the end of the day. Do whatever you want.
It is indeed. We're grateful to Zayna Hamarneh for talking to us on Now You Know about her decision to freeze her eggs as a single 35-year-old woman and why it's time to break the stigma. Another one of our stories that really resonated not only with women but with men too is endometriosis. So many women suffer from it but are overlooked or misdiagnosed every year. So let's get into it. I speak to one woman who shared her journey, something that might be familiar to many of you. And I get some expert advice to help you better understand in case you're having questions of your own. Anita Jones is charming, engaging, intelligent. She exudes charisma every time she steps on the stage. And in the world of football broadcasting, whether it's Champions League nights or under English Premier League lights, there's no room for off days. But what many people don't realise is that while she's interviewing some of the world's top footballers, she's in a lot of physical pain. Anita has a condition many women suffer from, endometriosis. So, Anita, I really appreciate you coming on Now You Know to share your endometriosis story. So, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I do want to start from the beginning because yours is a story of, I suppose, just being misunderstood and being misdiagnosed. So I believe it was the age of 14 where you went to the doctors to talk about, your painful menstrual cycle.
I think anyone who's listening or watching who has endometriosis or anyone who has someone in their family or close circles will probably think what I'm about to say is all too familiar. I would miss a lot of school actually at 14. I'd started my period at 12, but then it felt like from one day to the next, all of a sudden they were just excruciatingly painful. No one can see it, but it was just debilitating. And like I had a teacher at school that was my saving grace. And so I'd gone to her one day and told her that I was having these really bad pains. And she said, if you're ever in a lesson, just excuse yourself to go to the toilet and then come join me in the gym where she'd be taking most of her classes. And that happened every month. And then finally went home to my mum and said that like I can't concentrate, like it's impacting my ability to learn. And so she's like, let's go to the doctor. My mum had also had painful periods. So when you're confronted with that a parent has also had it, it's very easy to be told, oh, it could just be hereditary. You're just having painful periods and women get them all the time. But the doctor then just said to me, some women get it or some girls get it. That's it. And from that moment on, it was just a thing of me going back to the doctors and me being told like to my face, this is normal. I just then accepted that. And looking back now, there was an incident when I was like 15 and I was hospitalized for pain around my right pelvic bone. They thought I had appendicitis. Since then, I've learned that like appendicitis is a common misdiagnosis for women with endometriosis. So it kind of links up because around that area is where I've had the problem for most of my life.
When did you realise what was happening to you wasn't normal?
So I was about 27.
Wow.
I'd gone on the contraceptive pill at 18. The symptoms weren't as bad. They were still very bad. Like I was taking things from like the age of 20, like codeine or opioids, like every month when I'd have a period. I'd get really bad migraines, regularly miss out on things with my friends. Like I'd look at my calendar and I'd predict when my period was more or less going to come if I wasn't on the pill, and I'd know like that's probably going to be a down week for me. Don't overload yourself with things because you're going to have to cancel. So yeah, I didn't know until I was like 27. And what had happened is the pain was not only when I was bleeding, it then extended outside of that. So like when you're on the pill, traditionally you're taking it for 21 days, then you have a 7-day break. So for years it had been that during that 7-day break is when it was like hell for me, like World War III down there. But then all of a sudden it changed and I was having pains in the middle of the 21 days when I was on the pill, and it was unexplained, and it was in particular on my right, like pelvic side. But then it got even more intense, and it was leading up to when I started my period, and then a few days after I finished. And then one day I remember being on Facebook at the time, because it was 2017, and a friend of a friend had like shared this post on Facebook saying that she'd just been diagnosed with this condition called endometriosis, and she listed all of her symptoms, and I literally identified with all bar one. And it was like the pain down there, the ovulation pain, the stabbing, migraines. And she mentioned that she'd felt gaslit every time she went to the doctors, that she'd been told repeatedly it was normal. And so when I saw that, alarm bells went in my head, and I went to the doctor the next day and asked to see a gynecologist. But had I have not seen her post, I would have continued to ignore the signs that my body had told me. Because if your body's in pain, that's not normal. Like, no one should think their body showing any level of pain is normal. But specifically the pain I was in is not normal.
What do you wish someone could have told you when you were younger about how to deal with the pain of endometriosis?
Listen to your body. You know best. Listen to your body. And again, that's not to discredit medical professionals, but if you are in pain repeatedly and it is debilitating, that is your body giving you a clear sign that something isn't right. And to not listen to it is more dangerous in the long run. Like when you see the devastating effects that a condition like endometriosis can have. If you're armed with the information and you know your pain threshold, you are able to advocate for yourself more and make informed decisions.
So where do we stand in the fight against this condition? With so many people affected by this condition, I wanted to speak to someone who could tell us why women still find it so hard to get a proper endometriosis diagnosis. But not only that, once the diagnosis is made, why getting effective treatment is still so difficult. So we tracked down Jandra Mueller. She's a pelvic floor physical therapist, and much of her work focuses on chronic pelvic pain, one of the surest signs that a woman has endometriosis. So Jandra, thank you so much for joining us on Now You Know. We've got a lot to get through.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Okay, so many of us know about the condition endometriosis. We may even know someone that has this condition, but there seems to be a bit of mystery around it. So can you just tell us what endometriosis really is, and can you break it down?
Sure. So at the basic level, endometriosis is cells that are similar to the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, but they are not exactly the same. So they behave similarly, they look similarly, but they are found throughout the body, most commonly in the abdominal pelvic area, so around our organs in our belly and our pelvic organs, reproductive organs. So that's outside of the uterus, and it attaches and it can look very different. It can cause a significant amount of pain amongst a number of other symptoms and infertility. But painful periods and infertility essentially is what endometriosis is kind of known for, although there's so much more to it. And so these lesions implant and can create inflammation, they can create pain, they can cause a structural change in the organs, a twisting, a pulling, that's really can't be seen for the most part in imaging. So it's kind of a silent disease.
Well, for our viewers and our listeners, to anyone who thinks that they might have endometriosis, what are the symptoms they should be looking out for?
So, of course, the most common are going to be painful periods. And yes, can you have a little bit of cramps here and there? Sure, first day. It should not be interfering with your life. And it should be tolerable, meaning like, can you take an Advil the first day and it goes away and you can live your life and fine. Sure. Again, there's people like myself who never had painful periods. So are you having pain at different parts of your cycle that make you want to go to the ER, make you avoid school, work, social events? That is not normal. So listen to your body, listen to yourself, ask questions with your family about your family. Did anyone, females, have a hysterectomy for any reason? You may find that your mom or grandma or your dad's mom had a hysterectomy, or your aunts or your cousins, and all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 that did, but they don't know why. Oh, it was for XYZ, probably misdiagnosed or fibroids. Fibroids are going to be, they're often linked to with endometriosis, not to say that everyone with fibroids has endo, but you do often see them hand in hand. And so ask those questions and you might start to gain like, oh, I do have a family history and that's not normal. And so that's the main thing. Infertility, if you've been trying and nothing, quote unquote, has been found to be wrong, meaning, you have clear tubes, you have all this, it's probably endometriosis. I think up to 50% of unknown fertility issues are due to endometriosis. And it may not be worth spending all the money at first to go through IVF or IUI or egg retrievals. You may want to talk with somebody who specializes in endometriosis before you do that because you're going to be more successful. Aside from that, if there is, for me, it was a lot of GI symptoms. Urinary symptoms are very prominent. So frequency, urgency, interstitial cystitis could be, that's another topic, but that could be a presentation of endometriosis. Severe rectal pain when you have an urge to go to the bathroom or when you're going to the bathroom, that can be endometriosis in the backside of the uterus by where the rectum is. And you don't have to have all of them. You can have 1, you can have 2, you can have all of them. But kind of taking that history and looking at those symptoms is important, especially when doctors can't find what's wrong with you.
Jandra Mueller, thank you very much for joining us on Now You Know. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anita's struggle with endometriosis and to finally get diagnosed might seem all too familiar to some of you. And I hope that hearing her experience will help you feel seen and to seek the information and the answers that will help you along your journey. Finally, to thyroid cancer. It impacts women more than men, a lot more. And if you've been diagnosed with it, try not to worry. I spoke to a doctor who offered some empowering advice you can walk away with. I also sat down with one woman who struggled to feel seen and to receive proper medical attention for years. Dr. Tania Jaghoub, thank you so much for joining us on Now You Know.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Samantha.
So when we talk about thyroid cancer, how does it come about?
In terms of what causes thyroid cancer, when we talk about risk factors, there are risk factors that are outside of our control. So, for example, women are more likely to get thyroid cancer than men. But that is what that is. There's nothing you can do about it as a woman.
Why is that?
Why is that? We think that maybe the female hormones, so the estrogen, may have some cross talk with the thyroid cells. And so because women naturally have higher estrogen levels, with pregnancy as well, estrogen levels go up. And so that may be the cause. But again, there's nothing proven that you can do anything to change that. But what we know that is modifiable is radiation. Exposure to radiation, and we're not talking about, X-rays here and there. The radiation that we're talking about is mostly childhood radiation, so exposure to radiation and childhood. So children who, unfortunately have got maybe lymphomas or leukemias as children who had to undergo radiation, we do see that there is an increased risk of thyroid cancer in those patients. Also, like radiation in terms of, like, for example, survivors of Hiroshima. So few, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, and even until now, we are still seeing an increased risk of thyroid cancer in that population that was exposed.
What should women look out for?
For the most part, thyroid cancer is a silent disease.
Wow.
Meaning that it's really asymptomatic. So there are no major symptoms. In certain patients, they do, and depending on where the location of the cancer within the thyroid is, sometimes they notice like difficulty swallowing, or like, as if something's getting stuck, like, I'm trying to swallow, it's getting stuck. There are lots of nerves. So the thyroid sits right in front of the left side of the thyroid sits right in front of the esophagus, our food pipe.
Yeah.
And so that's why if the cancer is in that part of the thyroid, it can sometimes cause that sensation, or like that clearing throat sensation. Like I always feel like something's like scratchy or itchy or something like that. There are also all the nerves in the neck that go to other places, and a lot of the times people have like ear pain actually, or shoulder pain even, if that thyroid cancer is irritating a nerve nearby. In more advanced cases, some people feel swelling of the thyroid, like, they could feel localized swelling or a lymph node that's, popped up or something like that. But in most instances, as I said, it's what we say incidentally discovered, meaning that, patients go in because they have back pain. They get an MRI, for example, of their spine, and then something pops up in their thyroid.
Dr. Tania Jaghoub, thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
your
It was
insight,
my
your
pleasure.
expertise, and just for being here.
Thank you so much. That was my pleasure. Thank you.
Ayah was diagnosed with thyroid cancer when she was just 23 years old. 2 years on, you could say she's been on quite the journey, and she's here with us to share her experience. So, Ayah, thank you so much for joining us on Now You Know.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us what you were experiencing and what symptoms you had up to your diagnosis of thyroid cancer?
Weight gain was the biggest one. 30 kilos in 6 months is quite a massive undertaking, especially after the weight loss. Brain fog was a massive one. Emotional dysregulation. I had a lot of stomach issues, just either a lot of pain, a lot of irregular BMs, if you will, just irregular everything, lots of bloating, lots of swelling in my face. I just kind of ballooned for quite a while. And so my double chin was very prominent, even as I was losing weight, for a little bit before the weight gain started to kick in. At one point, I just could not sleep for a week. Heat and cold intolerance, mostly heat intolerance, which is opposite to what a lot of people do go through. Yeah, those are the main ones.
And why did it take so long to get diagnosed with thyroid cancer?
I wish I could tell you. For years, I've been going back and forth to doctors about my stomach issues, and they would just say it's anxiety, it's stress. Just lose weight was the biggest one. Yep, just lose weight, just lose weight, just lose weight. Nobody had bothered to check my thyroid function. I've been having symptoms of both the autoimmune diseases and which obviously were affecting my thyroid before the cancer since I was 12 years old. And I wasn't diagnosed until I was almost 24. I was a month shy of 24.
Look, you know your body, you know your own mind, your own feelings. How did it feel just going from what it sounds like, going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and just feeling like you're not being heard? How did you get through that?
I didn't. Frankly, I was losing my mind. I was very depressed. I couldn't deal with it. Because at one point your body just becomes so overwhelmed, just crying and screaming for help. I will say, shout out to my psychiatrist. Keep your mental health in check.
Hey.
He was definitely a huge part of my journey and being able to keep me steady. But I just spent most of my time sleeping. I spent most of my time just making art, essentially, because it was all I had the energy to do. The low energy, the exhaustion was the biggest part of my symptoms. And as a result of feeling like, so am I the problem? Is it all in my head? Because at some point you get gaslit so much that you just can't help but feel like I have to be making this up at some point. When I was diagnosed, I felt relieved.
Finally, what advice would you give any woman who is going through something similar, whether it's thyroid cancer, I don't know, just any ailment?
Do not reduce yourself to, it's okay, it's just this. That's my first one, is do not minimize yourself. Do not make yourself smaller to fit into somebody else's expectation of what you should be, how you should be handling it. You know yourself and you know your body. And if something is wrong and you know it, no matter how many people try to quiet you down, scream louder. And the second one is, you are not your illness. You are not your illness. You are not your cancer. You are not whatever is going on. You are yourself first and foremost.
I hope that by revisiting some important stories about women's health, we can continue to have deeper conversations, raise awareness, and remind each other that our experiences matter and we're not alone. So please share your thoughts, and if you have some stories you'd like for us to explore on Now You Know, just let us know in the comments. Thank you, and see you again next week for a brand new episode of Now You Know.